that goes on in Washington, D.C. But I couldn't sleep. Now, you that know the scripture know that wrestling with an angel is kind of something that I did overnight, and yet it was not like that. It was like, oh God, I don't know what to do. I don't want to do that. And I finally had 5 days during the Clinton impeachment votes, between votes. And, you know, it was kind of an interesting time. We fought and voted and fought and voted, but there, you know, it was a lot of fighting. And so I got on a plane and I went to India, and I found thousands of children younger than my granddaughter. I proceeded with Shared Hope International, started a corporation, called my husband, called a couple of people that had money, and within 3 or 4 days started some safe houses and put them under another organization. I am someone that likes to get things done quickly, but I really wanted to get out of there because it was repulsive. But I did have something inside of me saying, you better do something because you know it's wrong. Got back home, organized with Colin Powell, the World Summit on Trafficking, started getting involved, decided not to run for governor of the state, and a couple other things I was thinking that somebody else was thinking about. I was thinking it sounded crummy. And politics are not really all that fun. And when I was written in for Congress, I was on vacation, it's another story, and they wrote me in for Congress, sent me without my permission, and I really didn't file. And I was there, and my husband of 43 years now is somewhere else, and that wasn't so cool. But I didn't think that I could be in politics and do what the passion was in my heart. So I am a business person. I chaired the business committee for Congress, a small business committee, but I'm also a mom and a grandma, and you know, one of those people that does a lot of things like all of you. And I started, though, running diplomatic efforts for the U.S. government, State Department, because that's kind of another thing I do. And I started organizing around the world. And one day, I started another corporation, and it was called Trafficking Markets. And Trafficking Markets has a human rights component, and we investigate trafficking. Now, what you saw in that video was I decided to add 3 parts of America and all the product, because you see, it is just a market. There are buyers demanding something, sellers who will provide it, facilitators who will make it happen, marketers, right, all those, and then there has to be product. I decided, though, to be credible in the United States as I traveled, that I was going to have to say somebody looked as deeply into America as we were looking at other countries. Sounds reasonable, doesn't it? So we deployed people like we do in other countries to go in as human rights investigators. They would go in and they might be out of New Zealand, like one was, and he was on loan from what would be their intelligence or their investigating arm, and somebody else out of Interpol, and they would go in and start shopping the moment they hit the ground. Figure out what the taxi driver did. I would then run an economic on who owned the properties in Netherlands, et cetera, et cetera. When I added America, it was different, and I got the first investigation back, and guess what I thought I was going to see? Because I had all those language translators already. I thought I'd need them. Well, the translation was how to translate a 13-year-old girl's language, and it was all American. And I remember hearing the undercover like you saw, and they were bargaining for a couple of girls in the back seat of a car. And when I heard it, it was giggled like I have grandkids from little to older. And it sounded like one of them. She has this kind of deep, kind of silly, grandma, and it doesn't fit a 13-year-old. But it sounded like her, and I thought, oh, that could be Dally. They brought me a couple of girls. I did the training videos for the Innocence Lost Task Force and several things for the Justice Department off of this. And so they brought me a couple of girls off of a case, and I want to tell you about her, and that's why we're here tonight. One of these girls, she'd been a teenager, about 13, and walking to school, she built a relationship with a guy. And she was living with her grandma. They were really churchgoers and loved the Lord. But grandma didn't know that some guy was talking to her on the way. Guys, listen, talk to your little girls. We're talking to her on the way. Daddy wasn't in the picture. Mama was drunk. Grandma was raising the little girl. Smart kid. Talking to her on the way. Built a relationship. One day took off with her. He did what they do to all of them, and you don't want to hear this because you've been partying, but oh, it's so fun here, and I love the party, but you see, we're here for a reason. He told her when he got her off and he did horrible things to her, that now she was a whore. And whores in the United States go to jail. Guess what? We did find the laws do that. We're fixing those. That's another story. And by the way, House Bill 49, pass it. It will make you one of the strongest states in the nation. If you don't know what it is, find out afterwards. I'll tell you. Ask anyone around you, the U.S. Attorney's here, prosecutor's office. Ask anybody. And if you don't know, find somebody that does. We found the laws, arrest the kids and the guys that buy them. Wow, just like India. Don't go to jail. Once they're called a prostitute. Well, this little girl was told, you're a hoe. Hoes go to jail. And guess what? If you give us up, we're going to get your grandma. And we're going to take those pictures we took as those men were doing those things with you, now that you're one of those, and we're going to show them to your friends at school and at church. And then they'll know, what did they just do? He just told her there's no place you belong and no place you're safe. And you will see these girls and you'll think, as they smile and nod and provide services to men all over the United States, pretty common men, that somehow she's one of those girls. I will tell you, there isn't one of those girls in God's world. She is a child of God. And by the way, under the law in the United States, if you're under 18, you can't give consent to your own victimization. And you can't engage in a verbal or written contract. Why should you be able to do it for that? But this little girl, she had been picked up and she was being stalked because there was another woman in the picture. Her name was Katrina. The organizational efforts in a large pip ring out of Ohio had found there was a market. Lots of people coming in to restore this area. And there were two things happening: the destabilization of the family and the kids. And there were kids trying to get back to where they knew there was a home, and they didn't know it was blown away. They didn't believe it because they never got to go home. And then there were other kids that were just being brought in. Tanya, that you saw, and Katie got to visit your beautiful area. Now there's the problem. The laws are getting fixed. We have the biggest, strongest law on the coming up right here that could put this state on the map in the United States. But the application of the law is a problem. Not necessarily in the law, but there's no place to put these girls. If she's not safe, there's no place that would accept her. She's expensive. The last one I rescued, it was about a year ago, cost $80,000 my our first month with medical, because she was so hurt, not by the pimp, but by the buyers because of what they're buying. How horrible to have the pimp be right that there's no place for her. You're here tonight and you've got money. You've been giving it. I have no pale in looking at you and saying, if you got it, I want it for these girls. And you've got a group here effort that started growing. We did an assessment of Louisiana. We printed it. We brought it here. Some people started working on it. We did the evaluation of your laws here. And the difference between this state and some others is you had people get busy. You have people that understand. You have a U.S. attorney here that is active. You have an attorney general, a governor. You have people that are serious about this. Representative Abrams, who isn't here, actually has drafted the law close to the template of what we recommend for a state. You've got it going. But tonight, I want to be able to go back and add a list that we have a place on our list of safe places for girls, and it's right there in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. Because you see, we're smart enough now, and the police here are amazing. They're doing amazing things, and you really are ahead there in many ways too. But we can find them, and I could have got either Tanya or Katie. But where would I put them? And by the way, by the time we got them, they got them both young. We got them about 15, 16. When I got them, they were about 17. It's just about the age where the civil society says, well, they're kind of a woman. Nah, they're still a 13-year-old little girl, and they're just as important as the 13, 14-year-olds that I saved, or we saved. And the reality is our systems, our child protective system stopped serving them in most states about 17, 18. But I have now 2 grandkids, one 17 and 18, and I'll tell you, their brains, they're really smart, because I'm a grandmother and they're really smart. But, their brains aren't done, and they're not ready. And they need us even more in some ways. So when I heard about what you were doing here, and I was invited, I was going, oh yeah. I want to go for 2 reasons. I want to celebrate your successes, the amazing things that you've done and are doing. I want to challenge you, though, to have a law that is the strongest in the nation. And then I want to be able to come here, and when there's a placement somewhere where I have to have a girl that's 17, and there needs to be a heart and a place, I can say, oh, let's take her to Baton Rouge. God bless.